Hello and welcome to Giant Mess, a sloppy sports and entertainment talk show that covers New York Giants football, Mets baseball, movie reviews, TV show recaps, and reactions, along with some funny stories and life lessons along the way. It's hosted by Giant Mess, that's me, the Real Cinch Neal Lynch. I'm a former college quarterback and pitcher and current fat ass. You can leave a voicemail at 862-BIT-1986, that's 862-248-1986. On today's episode, we'll be talking about the Metros. With great success comes great responsibility. No, that's not how it goes. But all the high that we were feeling off the 5-game winning streak, taking 2 or 3 from the Rays and then sweeping the Guardians, we came back down to earth big time against the Cubs and the Rockies. So we'll briefly recap and react to those 2 series. And we're kicking off our series, 3-game series against the Phillies. Game 1 of that series being played right now, bottom 8th, 2-0 Mets, no big deal. And then we'll preview the Blue Jays series, which really ecstatic that we're facing them in Queens as opposed to going up to Toronto. We'll also talk about Los Gigantes. The OTAs have started, and my God, the reactions are pouring in. People are thirsting for football, and every single play, every single day is getting wildly blown out of proportion. But we'll react to some of the reports coming from the big Jays. Is Darren Waller make us a top 10 offensive unit? Probably. And then there are some position battles going on. I don't really see them as battles. I think it's pretty definitive outright what's going to happen, but we'll get into that. React to some of the stories about Saquon Barkley's contract taking another step back. God damn, man. God damn. The rumors circulating, at least online amongst the fans, about Deandre Hopkins coming to the Giants after being released by the Cardinals. And then comparisons. We love comparing. And my therapist says you should stop comparing yourself to others. But fans love to compare, and so a lot of people are comparing Daniel Jones, our Prince, to Josh Allen, who was a darling heading into last year. And then some have said he's peaked. So, again, totally not an overreaction whatsoever. And with that healthy intro, let's get started. So the New York Mets breathed life back into the Mets fan base with a nice, healthy winning streak. Looking good against the Rays, looking good against the Guardians. Verlander telling ESPN to take a hike. Everything was right in the world. Then we went to Chicago, and we faced a team that some people would say is inferior to us, at least on paper. But statistically, as we mentioned last week, they don't seem to be playing like they are a team that was 4 games below 500. I didn't get that impression by looking at their rankings in the National League, their offense, their pitching. It just seemed like there weren't any glaring weaknesses, and I think we saw that on full display in the 3-game set in Chicago. We were recording that Tuesday. And so I kind of was giving some live break-ins here and there, some play-by-play. But Ty McGill, it's been a rough couple starts for our boy, Ty Lord. He was statistically, I guess, our best pitcher, at least from a win standpoint, 5 wins. He's still the leader in that category, which is kind of crazy, but couldn't locate the ball, couldn't find the strike zone, couldn't get ahead in the count. And we've seen how that can really derail any hopes of winning for any team, really. I don't know that many pitchers can overcome that or pitch like that and get the dub. So wasn't looking good early on for him, and he didn't finish well. 3 2/3, 6 runs, 4 earned. Vientos, Vogelbach, Marte, they combined left six guys on base. Not a ton, but it just feels like there were opportunities here and there, as opposed to the next day, which we'll get into. But really disappointing, coming into Chicago, and I guess understandable. Travel day, new place, coming off the high of winning a doubleheader on the Sunday Night Baseball. I get it, but you can't put the team in that kind of position where it's just clawing back, fighting back the entire time. And that wouldn't be his only rough start of this week-long patch, this week-long time frame. The next day, 4-2 loss. Okay, a little more competitive. Kodai Senga gives us 5 innings, 6 hits, 3 earned, 6 Ks, 5 walks. Again, that's a very yucky stat line. The walks are the most concerning, right? And I think that's the scouting report that we got for the booth tonight, because Kodai started tonight and looked magnificent. 7 innings pitched, 9 Ks, 1 run. Couldn't ask for anything better. But we've talked about, like they showed it today, the Mets record when they get 6 innings of quality starts, something like 13-0, we're undefeated. We don't lose when we get a quality start. So let's just get some quality starts, right? And the booth was saying that the reason that Senga doesn't give us, even though he is, I guess, the leader in the clubhouse when it comes to quality starts. I mean, he's one of the rare guys in the rotation that can go into 6 innings. But even I think the expectation was he's a lock for 6 innings, and then let's get into the 7th. The outing tonight is kind of more in line with, I think, what the hope was, the expectation was for him, that he would come in and be that third. I wouldn't say ace, because I guess Scherzer and Verlander are the aces, quote unquote. Although I would say that we might need to rethink calling them aces after some of their recent performances. It's like they do, they'll have a start where it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I forgot. Cy Young winner, absolute dog, gonna give us that every time out, and we're just not getting that. So I don't know. We can call them aces. Maybe that'll light a fire under their ass. Someone show them this clip. Anyway, Senga's not getting us a lot of quality starts because he's not, again, same thing that afflicted McGill. Not able to locate, not able to find the strike zone, getting behind in the pitch count, and a lot of the hitters have now started to tee off on his fastball. If he can't locate a lot of the pitches, he gets behind the count and he has to go fastball. That's when he's getting rocked and ripped and shredded. But when he gets ahead, that's when the ghost fork comes out. And that's when it's lights out for opposing hitters. So that's the key to success. Not to oversimplify things, but yeah, that's it. Get ahead in the count. First pitch strike, second pitch strike. And if teams start to catch on to that and start swinging, you could look at some nice quality starts, because they're, if they're putting the ball in play, 0-1, 0-0, 0-2, you're looking at lower pitch counts, first and foremost, which is always great. And we have one of the better defenses in the league. We've committed the fewest errors. Nimmo robbed Castellanos tonight. And, we just have a really solid, good defense. So let's put the ball in play. You don't have to strike everyone out. And you saw that tonight against the Phillies, but that did not happen in Chicago against the Cubs. And I think one of the reasons, or at least one of the excuses that I've seen floating around, is that the weather was not great. It's the coldest weather that Senga has ever pitched in. That's completely understandable. That affects how you pitch. Living in the Northeast my entire life, spring training or preseason, whatever you want to call it, starts in March. And it's not warm in March here. It doesn't get, they're like blizzards around St. Patrick's Day. So you can imagine what it's like pitching in that weather, and like even hitting in that weather is even worse, because you catch one on a metal bat near the handle, and it's just like your vibro in the worst possible way. Your hands are just like, you get it's like a stinger that goes down your arms to your elbows. But pitching, it's like, forget about it. You're just trying to survive at that point. Meanwhile, in college, we went down to spring training in Florida, and it was like, that's the best I've ever thrown in my life. I hit 87 miles per hour. Can you believe it? We don't need to look into like wind patterns or anything like that. It was 87 straight up. So that game, we also were going up against an ex-Met, a former Met, Marcus Stroman. I don't know that I've heard a ton about Stro heading into this series. I honestly forgot he was on the Cubs. And then now it's like he's not nonstop in my feed. Like not just that particular start against the Mets, but he then shut down the Rays. And it's like, oh, okay. Interesting things. But he went 8 innings, 4 hits, 3 earned, 3 Ks, 2 walks. It's like a very Marcus Stroman line. And part of me misses that, right? Not a like mind-blowing line, but putting the ball in play, getting outs. That's the name of the game. And he's also a Golden Glover, which he makes very humble about. He doesn't really flash the glove too much after he makes a great play. But of course, Buck wasn't too happy about his antics and shenanigans and whatnot. And as were a lot of the Mets dugout, Mets clubhouse. And Stroman, I try to pay him no mind because it's like seems like a troll. Seems like he likes getting under other people's skin. Even though he said he's doing him, and I'm all for that. I think that I hate using the word swagger, but that level of confidence and cockiness, whatever you want to call it, is something that the game needs, and I like it because I like personality. And David Robertson just closed down the night. So 2-0 Metros. So what I'm most excited about with this Phillies series is like we talk about get right series. We thought the Rockies was going to be a get right series. And I honestly think if we can really take it to the Phillies, I think that's gonna be huge momentum wise, taking us into the Toronto series. So yeah, getting back to Stroman, I mean, you just can't let it affect you. Can't let it impact you. It's like you don't want him talking shit on the mound, pointing to you and gesturing and pointing to his glove and all that stuff. Get your mind right and hit the ball. Put it where they ain't. There's ways to shut him up, and that's to get the best of him on the field. So you don't want that to happen. Well, then you know what to do. But part of me, I would have liked to have Stro for much longer than we did. It sucks that he has this perspective and view that the Mets are just like this racist organization. And, we've come a long way from when we passed on Reggie Jackson because he was black, that was wild hearing about that. And when I was doing research on Reggie Jackson, like, oh, he could have been a Met, but we're just a little bit too racist. There's racial bias. You can't ignore that that's a thing, but I just don't see that with the current day Mets, that there's like this active racism against him. And it's like, when you perform and play and show out, we fully embrace you. But he just felt otherwise. And I'd be curious. I'm kind of curious, but I'm not curious enough to dig in on it. What his experience in Chicago has been like, what the Cubs fan base thinks of him. I'm sure recency bias would show that they friggin' love him. He's pitching like a maniac right now. So, but revenge is a dish best served cold. Or, as my mom would like to say, revenge digs 2 graves. Okay. So, but I would be willing to tank the Mets season just to get revenge on Marcus Stroman. No. But hopefully we do see him again and things turn out differently. The next day, though, our boy, Carlos Carrasco, Cookie, gave us probably one of the best outings he's had in a Mets uniform, I want to say. 6 2/3, 5 hits, 1 run, 4 Ks, 2 walks. Again, nothing really crazy to write home about in terms of strikeouts. Not like a overly dominant performance, but he was in control, I saw this on Twitter. Carlos Carrasco's velocity on his fastballs is trending up since he returned from the IL. His average 4-seam fastball velocity in his first start of the 2023 season was 91.1. And then in this game, it was 92.3. And you might be saying to yourself, oh, wow, a whole mile per hour. Dude, have you gone a mile in an hour? Things get moving. So very good. If he can be, now he's not going to give us that every time out. I get that. But the Cubs lineup is not too shabby. And if we can get something along those lines, 5 2/3, 6 innings, get us deep into the fifth, into the sixth, only giving up a run or two, or hell, I'll even go for 3 runs. I'll allow it. That'll be huge. So if Senga can get get ahead in the count, get ahead of hitters, not allow them to tee off on the fastball, really be able to lean on the ghost fork. If Cookie can come out and do what he did that day, and if Scherzer and Verlander can just get some kind of consistency, our rotation now is not looking so dreary. We actually have 4 quality starters. But that was a big win. 10-1 win. Offense came out firing. Beatty with 2 ribbies. Marte with 2 ribbies. Alonso 2 ribbies. Nimmo 2 ribbies. McNeil was 3 for 4 with 3 runs scored. 13 hits in total, but we left 17 on base. So 10 runs, great, but 17 left on base. There were more ducks on that mother effing pond, y'all. And all those runs came against the starter Hendricks and then reliever Rucker. So you figure, okay, what a time to be alive. 10 runs against the Cubs in Chicago. We're going to go into Colorado. Our offense is rolling, and we're just going to put up numbies. We're going to put up some crooked numbers, some double digits possibly. And Friday night wasn't exactly the fireworks explosion that we had in mind, but we did get the dub 5-2. Scherzer gives us the 7 innings, 1 run, 6 hits, 8 Ks. That's like the Scherzer that we're, I think our expectations for Scherzer have been lowered significantly. I think that's one of his better starts of this season. And, I don't think we're asking for that every time out. It's just like at this point, we're in such dire straits that it's like, we'll take 6 innings and 2 or 3 runs and 8 hits and 5. It's like, we're just looking to keep it manageable because this offense has firepower in spurts. Very, very odd how this offense is taking shape. That was Max's, believe it or not, did you know? Max's first career win at Coors Field, going 0 for 3 over his 6 previous starts with a 6.39 ERA. And he says this is the healthiest he's been since opening day, which is great and all, but I'd take that with a grain of salt. The way he was talking about this injury that he had that put him on the IL, and even when he came back off the IL, he was citing the injury, and it's like it was similar to the injury he had in 2019 with the Nationals, and I'm just like, this is just going to linger. This is going to be an issue off and on all season. So we'll take what we can get with Scherzer. Lindor, 2 for 4 for ribbies. He's on pace to set a Mets record for doubles in a season. Nimmo was 2 for 2 with 3 walks and 3 runs scored. And on the negative side of things, Marte 0 for 4, 3 left on base. Alonso 0 for 4, 5 left on base. McNeil 0 for 5, 3 left on base. So thank Jeebus that Mad Max came out and put on a nice show. And also for the bullpen for not, collapsing when he came out in the 8th and 9th, Jeff McNeil heading into that game. So he had a bad night, 0 for 5, 3 left on base. But heading into that night, over his last 10 games, he was hitting .412, 8 runs, 3 ribbies, 1 stolen base. His average went up almost 30 points to OPS, went up about 20 some odd points, almost 30 points, .459 on base percentage. Is it safe to say he's underrated, underappreciated? I know he's the batting champ. I think he's well recognized across the league, but he kind of flies under the radar. I like seeing him successful and not slamming his helmet to the ground and cursing the gods. So great to have him firing on all cylinders. And then this is where things don't turn out so great. They take a downward trend. 10-7 loss. And if heading into the series, if you said to me, knowing what Scherzer's previous record is, it's like, well, that feels like a loss. Dude can't win at Coors Field, so that's a loss. Well, at least we got Verlander, because that seems like that's a dub. And then we have Tyler McGill, and that's like a mixed bag, but odds are maybe he's probably not going to bounce back. So there's a very real possibility we could lose 2 of 3, even though everyone expects us to sweep. And we lose 2 of 3, but it's Verlander that I think is the one that really not soul crushing, but it just like, oh, really? You follow up such a tremendous outing against Cleveland, duking it out in a duel with Shane Bieber, and then come out against the Rockies and you pitch 5 innings, give up 9 hits, 6 runs, and only strike out 2, which was his lowest total since 2018. Meanwhile, 6 of our 7 runs came against the bullpen. Their starter, I think through 5, maybe give up one run. And then the Rockies rallied for 4 runs in the 7th and 8th innings against Jeff Brigham and Drew Smith. Jeff Brigham is interesting. I think he got off to a pretty hot start with us. Has been fairly reliable as far as I can remember. Drew Smith just feels like a wild card. I have no idea what we're going to get with Drew Smith. He can come in and strike out the side. He can come in and load the bases and give up a grand slam. Like, it just feels like I don't have a good beat. I don't think anyone has a good beat on Drew Smith. So that's disappointing. And then you think, all right, let's salvage the series. Let's at least get a series win against the lowly Rockies, who are in last place in the NL West and have like maybe a dozen stolen bases, which is unconscionable. And we come out and we fight hard. The offense fights hard, but we have a 11-10 loss. We're up 6-2 in the 4th, and that's when McGill fell apart. 4 innings pitched, 10 hits, 6 runs, 4 earned, 3 Ks, 2 walks. Gosick wasn't much better. He gave up 5 earned run on 4 hits in 1 inning, which is fairly uncharacteristic of him. I feel like he's been dependable out of the pen. I think he's one of my favorite relievers. Might be due to the stash, but it's unusual for him. So not great. But I was bemoaning Buck's decision to start Gary Sanchez in Chicago. And I was like, what the hell is this guy doing? Why is he getting so many appearances, innings? What happened to Alvarez? And it's Alvarez just decided, well, I'm going to make the decision extremely easy on you, Buck. Here we go. And he's been tearing the friggin' cover off the ball. And that's why they moved him up to number 2 slot in the lineup. And he responded with 3 ribbies. A nice big fat 3-run home run. Tommy Pham was 3 for 4 with 4 RBIs and 2 runs scored. Kind of feels like Canna and him are platooning now, and it seems like Buck seems to be favoring Pham over Canna. I could be looking way into that, but I don't think that a lot of people expected Tommy Pham to be producing like he can or has been. Obviously, he can go into some pretty gnarly slumps, but it's kind of crazy that he's like, can be the spark plug. 22 runs we scored in that 3-game set against Colorado, and it's the most in a series that we've had all season outside of the A's series, maybe? I think that sounds right. The A's seemed like they would give up a ton of runs to us. So offense, not necessarily the issue. It's the friggin' pitching. So if Verlander, literally, it's been so volatile with Verlander. A really horrible start against the Rays. Great start against the Guardians. Really horrible start against the Rockies. You kind of just want to just level this out a little bit. Meet us halfway, and I think we can win more games than lose if you just pitch average. It's just is that possible? So we're off on Monday. We had the first game of the 3-game set at home against the Phillies. 2-0 win. Kodai Senga, as I mentioned, really outstanding effort. And you can see, that number that I said at the beginning of the episode, the beginning of the sequence, we just need a quality start. I think the bullpen, for the most part, on most nights, is solid. And if you get them the lead, I still think we haven't lost a game when we're leading after the 8th. It's been like 115, 52 innings straight or something like games straight. So, just let's get the lead, give the bullpen the lead, and odds are we'll come away with the victory. So big first win, game 1. Who do we got for game 2 and game 3 on the bump? Aaron Nola versus Carlos Carrasco tomorrow night. Nola's 4-3 with a 4.59 ERA, 60 strikeouts. I feel like we usually do decent against him. And then if this is the new cookie, a fresh cookie, instead of a cookie that gets chewed, spit out, we're looking at another close game. I think every game is going to be close. And then we get to face on Thursday afternoon. It's Taijuan Walker against Max Scherzer. Taijuan winning record 4-2, but he has an ERA over 5.5, 43 strikeouts. You gotta take that one. So feels like we're probably gonna take the L tomorrow with Carrasco. Although who knows, he might come out and give us another stellar performance, and we might say to ourselves, "All right, he is reborn. He has risen. He's rejuvenated." Ranger Suarez, tonight's pitcher, came in with like an ERA over 9. He lowered it to 7 because he only gave up 1 or 2 runs. But this Phillies rotation pitching staff, they give up runs. So I think we can get to them. And it's just a matter of like, can our pitchers begin to put it together and figure it out? It's like Kodai feels like he's, hitting. Maybe this is what he needs to get back in the groove. I just wish we had a little more consistency. It just feels like so up and down from start to start. Like, is this a start where Max just gets railed? I don't know. But if I had to guess, I'd say tough fought game against Aaron Nola. Probably might take the L there, but if we can pull out the series against Taijuan, that'll be nice sweet justice. And we got the Blue Jays. We get to face another ex-Met, Chris Bassett, in that first game on Lou Gehrig Day versus the Blue Jays. He's 5-4 with 3.8 ERA, 57 strikeouts. So it looks like after maybe a rough start to the season, he's settled down and is looking pretty solid. I'm sure there's a lot of sports talk going around about, well, do you regret letting him walk? Do you think we should have brought him back? It's like, well, if you're going Senga versus Bassett straight up, Senga has the better numbers. If you're looking at Bassett versus Carrasco, yes, would love to have Bassett over Carrasco. I think a lot of people would take that. But again, it's not an unlimited budget per se. It's like he's not, Uncle Stevie's not afraid to pay. It's just like, you gotta be a little smart about it. And then, so Verlander's going against Bassett. And, if we're going up, down, this is an up game, right? It seems like he'll come out and give us the kind of outing that we're hoping, that we would want to get. And then we got Jose Barrios versus McGill in that second game of the 3-game set. That's Saturday at 4:10. Barrios is 5-4 with a 3.86 ERA, 62 strikeouts. McGill, though he is 5-3. His ERA is ballooned to 4.67, and that's going to be that could be a big game for McGill. I don't know that you can go 3 straight outings and get shellacked and expect to stay in the rotation. I mean, I think they tried to demonstrate as much patience as they could with David Peterson, but it's like this is now the 3rd or 4th or even 5th straight start where he is just getting annihilated out there, and you can't have it. Of course, he goes down to AAA and he's like, going to win the minor league Cy Young, whatever the equivalent of that is. He's pitching incredible down there, but it doesn't necessarily translate up here. So, sets the Blue Jays. I had the preview of the Blue Jays down here somewhere. Yes, here it is. Blue Jays are 28-26. They're in last place in the AL East. They're about a half game back from the next place finisher in the Red Sox, the 4th place Red Sox, and then they're 10 back of the 1st place Rays, who are back to being world beaters. They're offensively, they're 6th in runs per game, 4th in doubles. They're right around the league average in home runs and RBIs. They're 5th in stolen bases. They've struck out the 4th fewest times. 3rd highest batting average, 3rd highest on-base percentage, 4th highest OPS, 3rd highest OPS plus, 3rd most total bases, but they have the most runners left on base. So a similar issue to what the Mets offense has been struggling with for majority of this season, is just like leaving guys on base, stranding a lot of runners. I think Toronto does that as well. As far as the pitching staff goes, they're hovering around average in most categories. They have a sub-4 ERA, the 5th most Ks. They're tied for the 2nd most balks. Something to think about if we get some guys on base. Can we force them into some balks? 3rd highest home runs per 9, but also the 3rd highest strikeouts per 9. So, and the Mets have been hitting a lot more home runs of late. So that could be a good time to feast there. As far as the starting pitching goes, they have the 2nd worst wins above average in the AL. The relief pitching is the 5th worst wins above average. So it sounds like, if we can hopefully avoid striking out, we might have a fighting chance. The Blue Jays have the 5th best wins above average for first base. That's due to Vlad Guerrero Jr., obviously. They're the best wins above average for third base and Matt Chapman. 2nd best, a WA for shortstop with Bo Bichette. 4th best WA for left field, Dalton Varsho. Best WA for center field, and Kevin Kiermaier. Yeah. It's important to look back at some of the moves that we made and didn't make. And say to yourself, are we better off or are we not? George Springer, who everyone wanted to be the Mets center fielder for the rest of time, is now in right field. So, and people were like, we need to move on from Brandon Nimmo. He's just not our center fielder. And now I'd be shocked and appalled if Brandon Nimmo doesn't win the Gold Glove this year. In addition to hitting, 306, over 300. And so pretty happy with that, right? I think we'll take Nimmo over Springer, 10 out of 10. The outfield overall is the 3rd highest wins above average. But much like the Mets, they haven't really got a ton out of their DH or pinch hitting. Although Escobar seems to be the go-to bat coming off the bench and has somewhat thrived in that role, in the part-time role. So that's the sneak peek on the Blue Jays. We are now, with this one, we're 28-27, one game above 500. I don't know how the Marlins did tonight, but we're probably half game back from them. Still, we're now 3.5 games ahead of the Phillies. And, for all this talk about how great the Braves are, they're 4-6 in the last 10. And they've had chances to kind of run away with this division, sort of, and they haven't really done it. So, I know it's way too early to be talking about the wild card, but we were one game back of the Giants, San Francisco Giants, for that 3rd wild card spot before tonight's game. I don't know how San Francisco, I don't even think they started playing tonight, but probably half a game back as of right now. Again, it's just funny to talk about the wild card already. And like the Cubs are 23-30, Rockies are 24-31, the Padres are 24-29, tied with the Reds. Pittsburgh, who I think was 19 and something at one point, is 26-27 now. So it's a long season. Buckle up. Some interesting thoughts from Anthony DiComo. So now that the season is 1/3 done, Memorial Day is like kind of the tentpole, flagship, highway marker, where it's time for some reflection. So the first third of the season is for self-evaluation, he says. The second third is for action, right? Because the trade deadline's looming, that August 1st date, right? So you have pretty much June and July to really take action. It's like, all right, here are weaknesses. Here's where we're falling short. Here's where we need to address. So I can't see the Mets being inactive at the trade deadline. And maybe I don't see it being a huge splash. I said this before, but I think Vogelbach's on the block. I think, I think people have kind of written him off, even though it's, he walks a lot, he gets on base, but that's not what you're looking for out of him. And, maybe there's a thought that I don't know if they want to. I'm torn between, do we trade Ronnie Mauricio or do we just call him up and have him play second and shift McNeil to the outfield? Like our corner outfielders have been underperforming. I mean, you can't disagree with that. They've been underperforming all year. They're just not. I mean, we have guys like Alvarez and Beatty that came up way later. Have not played as many games and are pretty much on the heels of putting up the same kind of numbers, or if not better than Marte and Canna. So I don't know. Maybe I don't know, but I think you might see Mauricio come up earlier than later, especially if we're continuing to kind of struggle and hover around that 500 mark. So Francisco Lindor, very confusing, right? He's the best overall shortstop we've had since Jose Reyes, easily a top 2 talent, the position in franchise history. And fans are still going to be hot and cold with him. I don't think everyone's on board the Francisco Lindor Express yet, and that stinks. But understandable. I mean, people want to get what they pay for, and they figure if they pay him as the highest paid shortstop in baseball, he should be the best shortstop in baseball. And it's like if he were earning $100 million less, would we even be criticizing him? Would we be talking down on him? No, obviously not. But as Tacoma points out, like if he gives the Mets a signature moment in the postseason, Game 7 winning hit, home run, all that ails you will be cured in the postseason. That's really what it comes down to. Get to the postseason, win in the postseason, and not I mean, pretty much all is forgiven, I guess. Not that there's much to. There should be any reason to forgive him for any. He didn't commit any sins, really. It's just I think he's not quite putting up the same numbers he did with Cleveland, so that's a bummer. But he's also not a complete bust, or it's not like he's below average in many categories at all. He does lead the team in strikeouts, and he does have the lowest batting average among qualifiers, guys that play a lot. And his on-base percentage is .295. So he's striking out a lot, or he's getting extra base hits. He's slugging. He's slugging or striking out. Doubles, home runs, or strikeout. And, Buck seems to think that he's just trying to be too perfect, and, maybe just needs to relax, So we talked about Vogelbach. He was supposed to be this guy that can really own right-handed pitchers, and that really hasn't been the case. He's got on-base prowess, but the power drought is extensive and long and lengthy and never-ending. So I don't think many people see that turning around, and I think that's why he'll be trade bait, which sucks because he does have a very healthy portion of the fan base that loves him for his personality and for what he brings to the team in terms of chemistry and all that. But woof, dude, you got to start knocking in. You got to start slugging like big time. So, they've already kind of made it. Vientos got the start tonight against the lefty Suarez, and not exactly lighting it up. We talked about let the kids play, but I think the majority of that, other than Vientos having that huge game tying home run, I think it was against the Rays. Maybe hasn't been that great. He was below 200 entering today's game. I think he got above 200 with his hit tonight. But it's really been Alvarez and Beatty, and it's been Alvarez as like the clear guy leading the way. Like, we'll get into Alvarez's numbers soon, but oh my God, it's way above and beyond our wildest dreams. I don't think anyone saw his outburst, his production, the way it is now. Like I said, Verlander and Scherzer, I think a lot of people thought will go as far as they go, and I didn't have a ton of confidence in them coming into the season. And Tacoma mentions that they're more limited versions of themselves than we've seen in the past, and I agree. And to me, it's like it's hard to see them as the 1 and 2. I just can't see. It's just, but we don't have any better options at this point. To me, a 1 and 2. I don't know. Maybe it's just getting more acclimated. I don't know. But it's if we are relying on them to kind of spearhead the movement towards getting above 500 and getting in contention and getting back in the wild card race, I just don't like. We just need them to pitch league average at this point, So Tacoma posits that is it going to be Kodai Senga that leads the way and becomes our ace, the number 1 guy, and I could see that happening. He looked unhittable against the Rays. But again, the walks are killer. Walking too many batters, and his pitch count is getting too high, and that's why he has to leave most games. And even with that, he's still giving us more innings. even on every sixth day, giving us deeper outings than most of our other pitchers. Pete Alonso looking like he's on pace to hit 60 home runs or more, which is great. Brett Beatty is just like the guy at third. Doesn't feel or look or seem like a rookie. I mean, he's a little young looking dude. He still looks like he's in high school. I'll never get over that. But DeComo says that he is most like Michael Conforto in a comparison in terms of demeanor. And I agree with that. Conforto didn't often handled a lot of what the ups and downs with pretty much an even keel. Never got too down. And you can see that with Beatty as well. DeComo calls him unflappable on and off the field, which is kind of, if he's a placid lake, Alvarez is a straight up volcano popping out through that lake and blowing into the stratosphere. I think people were worried about his defense when they called him up, and he had a pretty ugly couple first outings behind the plate, and now he's a great defender, a good defender, throwing guys out. He threw a guy out tonight. I think he threw out Real Moto, which was huge in a close game like that. But the defense has been a nice icing on the cake. It's his offense that has really stolen the show. We talked about how we were lacking power in the last episode. It's like you take away Alonso and it's like no one's hitting home runs. But then Alvarez went on a tear. Lindor is hitting more home runs now. The Mets have hit a home run 12 straight games, which is their longest streak of the season. I think this makes it 13 or 14 straight games because this stat is from like a couple days ago. 21 home runs in that span. And it's been thanks to Alvarez and Alonso, obviously, and Lindor. The most home runs hit by a Met under the age of 22 in a single month in club history. Darryl Strawberry had 9 in 83. Swoboda had 7 in 65. And then you have Alvarez, 7 in the month of May. This is from a couple days ago, but he's hit 4 home runs over his last 7 games. The list of Mets under the age of 22 to hit at least 4 home runs over any 7-game span: Strawberry, Greg Jeffries, David Wright, Francisco Alvarez. The highest FWAR among National League rookies this season: Francisco Alvarez, 1.1. He's in third behind Corbin Carroll and James Outman. So it was a pretty easy decision for Buck to be like, all right, we're going to need a DFA Gary Sanchez. That's pretty obvious. And then he ended up signing with the Padres. But it looks like we have our guy. And now the booth was talking about how Narvaez is set to come back like next week or something like that. And they're like, I don't see any reason why you would sit Alvarez for Narvaez. I think at this point, you got to ride the hot hand and just say, Alvarez, it's your position to lose. Really, you won it with your performance. I mean, I don't know if I have most of his numbers here, but he's got over 800 OPS, and if you just take the last like 2 weeks or something like that, his OPS is like 1400, some nonsense. He's just playing out of his mind. And part of the realist part of my brain is like, all right, well, eventually he's going to come back down to the median. He can't play like that all season long. But my God, champagne problems, right? If Narvaez can come back and at least play average, having those two guys behind the plate, being able to spell them and still getting the kind of performance that we've been dying for. Think about the seasons we had McCann. When Nito had like a breakout month and we were losing it over the fact that we had someone behind the dish to give us some kind of output, and then Nito took a dive for the worst. So I like that combo, Narvaez and Alvarez. Very nice. So that's another position that we can probably not have to worry about. I have the utmost confidence in that position now. It's crazy how we went from like bottom of the barrel to now like we probably have the best 1-2 combo unit in all Major League Baseball. Just got to figure out the DH, got to figure out the corner outfield, and a bullpen arm wouldn't hurt, right? Bullpen arms never hurt. Mets are tied for the first in Major League Baseball for their teams in a fielding percentage at .990. This is something we talked about least amount of errors in the league with only 18, and that goes a long way. And I hope that continues. I think that's if you can continue to get some pretty good production from your offense, if the pitching can ever just settle down and come back to the league average, the defense will win championships. So that's the Mets. Let's talk about the Giants. Not a lot to talk about, but OTAs have started. We'll get into that in a bit. But there are three news items that I thought kept popping up on my timeline that I thought I would address. I don't think any of them are really that big news, but it's something to talk about, basically. Deandre Hopkins was released by the Cardinals after they couldn't get a trade done. And I saw a lot of photoshops, a lot of mock-ups of Deandre, D-Hop in a Giants uniform. And I'm here to say that's probably not going to happen. I think most people with a high amount of logic floating around their cerebellum would probably say it's just not in the cards, especially with, pun intended, with the salary cap the way it is. Do I see him as a mesh working well with that room, with this team, with this coaching staff? My initial instinct is no. And if I had to place a bet, I would say he would most likely reunite with Deshaun Watson, former Houston teammate in Cleveland. That seems to be the way it's going to go. I would be surprised, and I'm a little gun shy after the Kenny Galladay experiment. Not to say that DeAndre Hopkins is going to be the next Kenny Galladay, but he does have certain injury issues, getting a little up there in age. I'd rather not. It just seems like a risk I'm not willing to take. So, again, if we sign him, I'm all for it. I'm not going to throw a fit over it. I just feel like we're better off without him. There have been, of late, a lot of comparisons between Daniel Jones and Josh Allen. And I think it's nice to see. And I think there's all of a sudden there's been like this kind of weird change, at least in the opinion about Daniel Jones. And it just seems to have happened in like the recent, like this week. It just seems like all of a sudden, like a lot of people putting him down in that fourth, fifth, whatever bottom tier of quarterbacks in the league. And now you start to hear people saying, oh, yeah, he's average. He's not like, how do you give an average quarterback that much money? And now we're starting to say he's just on an upward trend, up and to the right, big time. And could he be a top 10 quarterback? Yeah, I think so. There are a lot of, numbers never lie, but they can tell an interesting story. And the numbers that people are putting out there, comparing him to Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts, are interesting. It's like, okay, I see. This is the fun part about numbers. We can manipulate them and say, see, he is on their level. And he doesn't have this supporting cast that Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts has. Is he, with the recent additions, signings, trades, draft, is he at that level? Does he have that supporting cast now that the other two have? I'm going to go say not quite, but who knows? There's a lot. They have fully stocked that wide receiver room, and it's going to be, and that's we're going to get to position battles in a bit, but that one's the big one, the glaring one. And from the limited days of OTA that we've had, it seems like Darren Waller is all that in a bag of chips. And any talk about him not being able to, he's lost a step or he's not quite the same or whatever, it seems like he's now the missing piece of the puzzle that's going to fully unlock Daniel Jones, which is great to hear. But again, shirts and shorts, guys. Shirts and shorts, no pads. So the offense is, we kind of panicked last year because the offense looks like such garbage, and lo and behold, is because Brian Daboll was stacking the cards against them. This year, it looks like the offense can't be stopped based on the reports that are coming out of camp, out of OTAs, nearly 100% completion percentage, touchdowns all over the place. So I don't have as much dread about the offense as I did last year, but I also don't want to get too high. Got to level set, got to recalibrate the expectations and anticipation. But the news of Josh Allen's downfall are like a bit premature. And though I think that's a decent comparison, Daniel Jones and Josh Allen, in terms of like how they play the game. Josh Allen did play hurt most of last season, so I think that had to come into play at some point. And if Jones can avoid injury and continue to make smart decisions, not turn over the ball, I think he could enter in that top 10 field. Do I see him ever being a top 5? Stranger things have happened, man. Like I said, I just think he's such a great underdog to root for. And I don't know that he's gotten the best shake. It's just like Eli the last 3, 4, 5 years of his career. They didn't really give him a ton of help. And I was begging him to can you just take a pay cut so they can bring in some people to help you? And he just wouldn't do it, wouldn't budge. But they're doing it for Daniel Jones now, which is such a relief. They're not just going to say, no, we're good with what we got. We're going to roll with them again. They're going to mature. They're going to improve year to year. And it's like, are they? Or can we just do this and this and this and this? And the final big news item that I saw was that the Saquon Barkley contract debacle, which we kind of talked about last episode, still ongoing. And now it's like another wrinkle thrown into the whole game plan here, where the reports that the Giants' offer after the draft was lower than what they had offered in prior negotiations, I guess in season maybe, or like right after the season ended. Well, coming up shy of that $13 million per year annual AAV. I'm trying to not buy into a lot of this media reporting because I think it's just like fodder, and it's like they need to get clicks, right? So I think they might be blowing it slightly out of proportion. We're all for the most part, we're all outsiders, right? Even the beat reporters and whatnot that think they have a pulse on what's going on. They're not fully embedded 24/7 inside at all points. So it's just like both sides want it to happen. Both sides are going to get it done. It's just tinkering, pull this string, pull this lever, up this, down this, I just can't. And if he's forced to play on the franchise tag, can he sit out? That's my only concern is because I feel like if he's forced to play on the tag, he's going to play angry and we might get the best out of him. And but I'm curious to see even if he were to put up another top 3, top 5 performance at the running back position in 2023, how much that adds to his asking price. I just don't so and then to know that he could get tagged again in 2024, which is kind of crazy. I just Saquon is friends with DJ. He makes such a great duo. He's got a lot of good friends on the team. Doesn't seem like he's personally sour about his time with the Giants. And believe me, as I mentioned in that opening game against the Titans, he has plenty to be sour about. The fact that they never really fully remedied and fixed the offensive line is a slap in the face to both Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley. And I was just furious that it felt like talk about overreacting. It felt like if that game continued to go as it was going and we lost by a touchdown or two, it's like I wouldn't be mad at Saquon if he demanded a trade or if he wanted to get the hell out of Dodge. But what a difference the year makes, what a difference the season makes, because I think that after seeing what he was able to achieve with this coaching staff and this front office, it's like sky's the limit and it feels like this is a good thing and I need to stick with it and could really establish and build a strong legacy here. So I don't feel that worried. I really don't. And they asked Dable, what do you think? How are you preparing for this? And what if this happens, this? And Dable had a pretty, safe, conservative answer, which is very applicable to my mindset right now. But you deal with what's in front of you, right? We are game planning and scheming, and we're acting as if Saquon is not on the team because he's not under contract. He's not suiting up. He's not on the field. So we have to, that's how we're approaching the day-to-day and play-by-play. Once he signs and comes back, then we move forward with that plan. So pretty even keel, but I don't see us. I don't know. I don't see us winning a ton of games without him. I think we can be competitive, but I just don't see. He's just a game changer. Huge, big time playmaker, and I don't know that you can make up for his loss. And I know people will point to that like Packers game where he was out for the series and we went 90 some odd yards without him. And Kafka was, some of the most creative play calling I've ever seen with guys that weren't on the roster, come week one. And Daniel Jones really playing above and beyond to make up for Saquon's loss. That's one drive. I don't know that you can do that for 7 to 10 drives per game for 17 games in a season. So as much as a lot of people devalue the running back position, say it's so not worth it. He's not Miles Sanders, and he's not some of these other running backs that are not getting the money that we all thought they would in free agency. I believe there is a team out there that would be willing. I take that back. I don't know if there are teams. Considering what the Browns did with Chubb, the Titans did with Henry, the Vikings did with Cook, the Packers did with Jones. So it just feels like this is a pretty good relationship. Let's keep it going. Let's not get too out of sorts, right? Maintain your emotions. It's just work through it. So that's the Saquon contract saga. We can take a look at the top position battles during OTAs. I don't know that they're much of battles. I briefly hinted at the wide receiver battles. I think that's going to be the most intriguing from this list. I think there's a lot of guys in the mix. You have Colin Johnson coming back from injury, Wan'Dale Robinson coming back from injury, Sterling Shepard coming back from injury. So, and I think that's a major reason why they didn't want to completely give up on those guys, but they're also let's get some insurance. And they did that with Paris Campbell, Jamison Crowder. Was it Kevin Smith? No. Justin Smith? Jeff Smith? So, and they also have this undrafted free agent who a lot of people are high on, Bryce Wheaton, I think his name is, and Hodden Slayton. I feel good about the wide receiver room, and it's a matter of there's concern that we might have too many slot guys. Jalen Hyatt is also technically lined up a lot in the slot at Tennessee. I think there's been some buzz or word about Hyatt not being struggling to adapt to the NFL because he ran a limited route tree and there was a lot of off coverage, not a lot of press coverage. So how's he going to do against press coverage? What's it going to do with an expanded route tree? You can't teach speed. That's all I'm going to say. I think that's just, it's I don't see him. I don't really fully expect him to go off for 1,000 yards and have 10, 15 the receiving touchdowns and average 16, 20 yards a catch. But I do see him developing into a pretty good number 2 and number 3. I really do. And you might say, well, that's not what we want. But I think having Darius Slayton and Jalen Hyatt on the field at the same time, dude, make sure you have the fire department on speed dial, bro. They're going to set the field on fire. They're burners. And the fact that you have now 2 burners that can really stretch the field, it opens a lot up over the middle, underneath. I'm looking at you, Darren Waller. I'm looking at you, Wan'Dale Robinson. I'm looking at the guys that like to run a lot of short, mid-range routes. There's just going to be space. It's very reminiscent of the Chiefs when they had Tyreek Hill, but even the Chiefs after they had Tyreek Hill, and the Dolphins with Tyreek Hill. The ability to, the Dolphins also have Waddle as well. So it's when you have that kind of threat and the opposing defense has to respect that, I think it only means good things for the offense. So an overabundance of wide receiving talent. And as opposed to last year where I think there was a pretty steep drop off from starters to not starters to bench, I don't see as steep a drop off, right? And considering that we were still able to put up, obviously there are games where we just completely struggled against some of the top defenses, but the fact that we were able to produce with some of the talent like we did against Green Bay, where we don't have a lot of the guys that usually are starting and getting the majority of the snaps, like to be able to compete with that level of talent, now we have 3 notches above that in terms of what we're putting on the field. So it's like we have a plan A, and we have a plan B, and a plan C. So I very excited. I'm like trying to temper how excited I am about this offense. Like I know the defense is going to come and bring it. I just know that like the defense is going to be, I'm not going to say leaps and bounds, but it's going to be as good as and definitely better than they were last season. And last season they were, I think most people would say they were a fairly pleasant surprise. I don't know that a lot of people were expecting Martindale to just come in and magically turn them around from being among the league's worst to, a formidable defense. So that's why it's like these people crying about the schedule, dude. 8 and 9, I just don't see it. So that's the biggest position battle in my mind. The next one is running back 2. This is, basically if Saquon's unable to go for whatever reason, you do have Matt Breida back, you have Gary Brightwell, and you have Eric Gray, and the consensus, I guess, is that Eric Gray is going to beat out Gary Brightwell, which is, I don't know. I don't feel great about it. I mean, I don't know that Brightwell's that bad. But I am pretty pumped to see what Eric Gray can do. I think there's been some talk from like NFL executives and coaches that they could take it or leave it. Eric Gray in the round, the pick that the Giants selected him, and that maybe what stands out to us about Eric Gray is pass catching abilities, pass protection. I just love the way he runs. He's like a friggin' pinball. Next position battle. Inside linebacker 2. So who's going to play next to Bobby Okereke? And I'm kind of pulling for Darian Beavers because I know he was having a pretty decent camp last season and was in line to be the starting linebacker. And then obviously went down with the ACL, I believe it was. So he's coming back from injury. I don't know that I could very easily see it as like he's not the starter next to Okereke when the season opens, but he's going to get there. He's eventually going to be the guy. Next up would be cornerback 2 position. Somehow people think that Deonte Banks is not going to be the day one starter. I don't know why, but there is a decent amount of competition there, right? Cordell Flott played a lot on the outside out of necessity, really, due to injury. Fabian Moreau, obviously in the mix. I don't know if Aaron Robinson is still in consideration. I think there's like 1 or 2 other guys. But unless something unforeseen happens, like the major knock on Deonte Banks that I don't know that we didn't really touch on too much when I did my NFL draft reaction or preview, was there are executives and coaches who think that he makes some really dumb plays. And as long as the scheme is not too advanced and above him, and he can just play press man, and then, if he has some guidance and support on the field, people who know what they're doing, maybe like an Xavier McKinney or someone who is more well-versed in the scheme, they can, hold his hand a little bit. But that's been the knock on him. So it's like, and then my mind starts to go to bad places like, oh my God, so now opposing OCs are just going to dial up something that is tricking him. Because he's easily tricked. Is that the deal here? Or is it going to be a situation where it's not so much that as like he just maybe gets frustrated, like it's not his day or it's not his drive, and he does something. I think we did kind of talk about that, and the reaction is that he'll get pretty upset about getting beat or not coming out on top and taking it out, and that's when the flags fly. So hey, listen, he's a rookie. He's going to make rookie mistakes. We have to live with that. But I have to believe that we're not getting DeAndre Baker 2.0. I really don't think that's the case. Even though they have the same initials and it sounds similar. DeAndre Baker, please God, you can't have another instance of that. So, but man, I mean, I've been craving a press man guy to be a lockdown. That would be huge. It'd be so huge. So yeah, I can see him. I don't see him getting burnt too much. I think we did see DeAndre Baker in his rookie season getting toasted and roasted. And I don't know that Banks lets that happen too often. It seems like if he does get beat, he has the ability to catch up and close the gap and make a play. So it's cornerback 2. And then these last 2, I feel like are pretty settled. Center, that's John Michael Schmitz all day, every day. I don't see any reason why he would not take that. I think the article I saw in The Athletic asking for honest opinions from the NFL executive, NFL coach, was saying that despite that he was better than Tippmann, even though Tippmann was taken 14 picks earlier by the Jets, and although Tippmann is more athletic, John Michael Schmitz is a better football player. That's all I care about, dude. I don't care if you win the strongman competition or the Eliminator on American Gladiators. Like, just can you play good football? Great. That's all I care about. So, really looking forward to the kind of boost that he can. And again, I think we place these pretty much unrealistic expectations on a lot of these rookies and expect them, because they are a first round pick or top 5 or top 10, that they are going to come out and light it up from the first snap. And, with Kayvon Thibodeau last year, it was like we had to show a little patience. Obviously, between the two, him and Evan Neal, Thibodeau shined more and gave us more hope and promise, and finished really strong. But Evan Neal could take that step in year 2, just like Andrew Thomas did. I don't know that Andrew Thomas was, people were, praising him as much as they are now. He wasn't worse than what we previously had. So I think that was encouraging. It was just like the injuries were kind of getting to him, and, just little missteps here and there, but it seemed like he was learning and getting better, and that's all we can ask for. We're so quick to like cut these guys and dump them and bail that we learn there's a learning curve. And like, of course, there are some guys that can just step in and be dominant, but I think you're going to see Thibodeau take the next step next year. Evan Neal will take the next step, and we'll see flashes of what to expect, in terms of, the ceiling, if you will, for a lot of the rookies this year. Yes, Banks and Schmidt and possibly Hyatt are your day one starters who, but they're probably not going to be like top 5 at their position, but they're going to give you reason why that's not that crazy to think. I can't express how awesome it is that we got drafted a center who could be the guy at that position for the next decade. And like the Banks, I mean, of the 3, I have the most confidence in Schmitz. I think that's the guy that's going to be rock solid and steady. And that gives me, it's like a security blanket. It's like, it's my anti-anxiety pill, Banks is dangerously thrilling. It's like that I get scared about, because it's like he feels like he could be a Darrelle Revis. Like he could be, we had like our last lockdown corner. I don't know that I would classify Dory Jackson as like a lockdown corner. He does limit the damage considerably against some of the top talent. I'll give him that when he's healthy. But in terms of like lining a guy up for 16, 17 games a season, and knowing that the opponent's top wide receiver, is going to put up numbers below their average every time. I can't remember the last time we had that. It certainly wasn't in most of the 2 most recent Super Bowl runs. Like that trio we had with Jack Rabbit, obviously had Jack Rabbit in 2016, was pretty damn good. DRC was decent, but again, there was some games where it's like, where are you guys? And so that defensive back, the DB room in 2016 was pretty cool, even with Eli Apple being whatever. But before that, tough to say. Would you have to go back to like Jason Sehorn pre-ACL, MCL tear, whatever he tore in 98? Because those defenses from 93, 94 to 2000, 2002, I'd say like 93 to 2002, our defenses were like unbelievable. And I think the corners, so it was Sehorn and Sparks for a long time. And then I don't remember who else did. So yeah, I would say, man, would be great to have a lockdown corner. And then the last position battle is left guard. I think the favorite is Ben Bredesen. He's competing with Josh Azudu, who's coming back from a pretty nasty injury. Marcus McKeithen, who lost the season due to ACL, I believe, before the season even started. So is he gonna? What's his recovery process going to be like? Where's he at? Do we think that he could be someone that we could consider halfway through the season, down towards the final stretch of the season? So that left guard position will be interesting. I don't know that Shane Lemieux is really in the running. I don't know if he's even going to make the 53-man roster. Is that weird to say? It feels like he kind of fell out of favor, which sucks. Just like he can't stay healthy. So yeah, those are the position battles to look out for. Not just OTAs, but training camp, preseason. I'm actually pretty excited about preseason. I usually don't get excited about preseason, but I think it's been cool to see a lot of these rookies in action, because I think they are, in terms of draft classes, this could be the biggest difference makers. I know it sounds weird to say with Thibodeau and Neal last year. I guess we'll see. Anyway, that's the episode. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. I will, if you've lasted this long, you might say, wow, Neil, like, you don't have the same kind of energy that you usually do. What's up? Well, I'm also like not buzzing from my drink. I had a pretty eventful weekend, Memorial Day weekend. I went to Block Island to stay with some friends and got after it pretty hard. So taking it easy tonight. But before I made it to Block Island, I stopped by to visit my grandmother, who was in hospice care. She moved from palliative care to hospice care. And so I did get to see her Friday night. It was a 6.5 hour drive from Mercer County, New Jersey, which is kind of crazy. I don't think it's ever taken me that long before, but there were multiple stoppages. Merritt Parkway should be permanently closed. That's a fact. And I got to spend some time with her Saturday morning, FaceTime with my sister, so she could, pass along her messages to my grandmother, who's 95, and she passed on Sunday morning. So in a better place, that's what they say, right? In a better place. I know she was scared of dying when I visited her, and she had a full cognizance. It was one of the last times that I can remember that she was fully there and fully with it. She said she was just scared of dying, and she didn't want to die alone. And luckily, my uncle was there with her throughout the whole process, and she was surrounded by loved ones, which is all you can ask for. She didn't want to die alone, and she didn't. So she did so much for our family, and I know you can't please everyone, you can't make everyone happy, but she tried her damnedest to take care of everyone, no matter what. She was in a wheelchair last time I visited. Was trying to cook me dinner. It's like, what are you doing? Just roll yourself over to the dinner table and let me take care of things. I'm a grown man, Jesus. Apparently, she before I got to the nursing home where she was in hospice care, she was hallucinating a lot. And one of the hallucinations, she sat up and she started to make the motion as if she was stirring like a pot. My uncle said, "What are you doing?" And she said, I'm trying to make clam chowder, but I don't have all the ingredients. Can you run out and get all the ingredients for the clam chowder? Thank you so much. And so they went out and got her clam chowder so she could have clam chowder to eat. And so they hand her the clam chowder and they go, "Oh, here you go. We found some clam chowder." And she goes, "Oh, this is not enough. How are we going to feed all these other people? We got to take care of these people. We don't have enough for all these people." So even in her hallucinatory state, if that's a word, still thinking about other people, still thinking about taking care of other people. And that's how she showed her love, just feeding people. She just like, anytime I went to her place and stopped in for a visit, it was like she ordered for food for 17 people. It's like, it's just me. I'm going to have leftovers for the next 4 seasons. So, like I kept saying to everyone, she just lived such a good life. She did so much for everyone and for me personally. And, we lost a good one. She's such a tough lady. I mean, the amount of stuff that she went through in the past year or two, I mean, you run down the list and you're like, how the hell did she get through all that? We're talking about cancer, stomach surgery, COVID. Like, it was a lot. And she just powered through. And every time, it's crazy when the nursing staff and the medical staff are like, we've never seen that. That never happens. That's no way. We would never have predicted or bet on her pulling through all that. So she fought to the bitter end. And she's a strong, tough lady. They don't make a lot of people like her. She always says she was praying for me. So Italian. So Italian. And I'm so thankful that I got to see her. I was kind of dreading it, because I'm not too great with death myself, and with dying. It's it weighs on me a lot. Think about my legacy in life and try to make the most of it. And she did. She really did. So many good memories that I share with my sister while I was there. About what she did for us and all her peculiarities and idiosyncrasies and all the quirks and whatnot, eccentricities. And but as much as I waffle and go back and forth between like, is there an afterlife or is this all we get, the logical rational part of my brain is like, oh, there's just nothing anymore. That's it. There's nothing. And then I catch myself, it's like I'm out on Block Island, I'm looking up at the sky and there's not a cloud in the sky, and I'm like, I hope the view's good up there. Say hi to Dad and Papa for me. So, it's a very interesting way to think. It's like, I know that's not probably the case, but just in case, I'll send a nice little thought up to you. So, I guess I can do something pretentious like dedicate this episode to her, but it's just like, I wanted to let the world know, the 5 people that listen, that she meant a lot to me. And I think about like, where would we all be without her? She had 4 boys, 1, 2, 3, a bunch of grandkids, a bunch of great grandkids, and she's had an impact on every single one of them. So quite the character. So we'll miss her. And sorry to end on a down note, but just trying to give you an insights into like where the brain's at right now. Just life. Like just when you think you have life figured out and planned out, it's like, oh yeah, check this out. Yank the wheel, throw you a nasty ghost fork. But yeah, I don't know. I don't want to say something corny or cheesy like hug your loved ones, but family's a weird dynamic thing. Some people have really strong family relationships. Some are distant. And like I said, I wish everyone had that strong bond with everyone in their family. And sometimes it just doesn't turn out that way. But it's important to, I don't know, try to be as forgiving and, I don't know if you say forward thinking, but trying to be more understanding, and not just throw someone under the bus because of XYZ or how someone deals with something or processes something. Like, we all have our own way of dealing and processing. So that's all I'll say about that. And everyone's going through their own shit, Like, I know, a lot of this podcast is judging and criticizing and analyzing and all that shit. But, if anything, this weekend has really shown me that it's, we just need to be a little less of the coming down on people and being so harsh. And I'm a little more open to, it's all right. We'll figure it out. We'll get better. Let's just, talk through it. Keep the lines of communication open. And that's the hope, right? It's the goal. Otherwise, what's the friggin' point? You know what I'm saying? Okay, that's enough. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll talk to you next episode. Adios, muchachos.